안녕하십니까. Hello everyone. So the last time I checked, I was running about 28 minutes, so we'll see how this goes. So I would like to invite everyone to imagine what a civic strategy for artificial intelligence might look like. I'll elaborate on what that means later, but just a few words on which angle I'm coming from. Yes. So these are some of the questions that usually interest me, like how technological changes relate to societal and cultural changes, and how the technology is made and by whom. So in terms of academic field, I think I am most closely interested to the field of science and technology studies. And just to establish a common ground of where I'm going with this, a really basic assumption that is important to me is that technology is not just a neutral tool that we can apply to a social process or a social domain. Rather, technology is essentially, when it is being used by people, something that also reconfigures people's actions, how they think, and how they relate to each other. So, to the extent that the negotiation of people's relationship is political, technology is also political. And I think I will have to skip most of this. But so some of the things that are important to me is tech literacy, and both in terms of being able to use devices and the prospect of getting jobs, but also, and perhaps more importantly, to being as the ability to have agency over technology and being able to express themselves, being able to critically think about it and use it for creative purposes, etc. Another thing that's important to me is the idea that essentially technology is contingent as to the historical and geographical context where it is implemented. I'm going to skip the details of this project, but if you want, we can talk about it later. Another project I did that sort of comes from a tech literacy context. So perhaps expanding on the idea of tech literacy, another thing that's important to me is the idea of interdisciplinary understanding and interdisciplinary learning. So my recent interest has been really focused on machine learning and artificial intelligence technology and social applications. So this is a sort of online readings list that I compiled, and it's also been essentially the foundation of another course that I taught. So, speaking of machine learning, I'm just going to go back. So I briefly mentioned two sort of definitions of technology literacy. One as a sort of means of self-expression and agency, and one as sort of a vocational skill. But these are not really clearly distinguishable aspects, in the sense that the same skill that will allow you to have better prospects for jobs are also the ones that will maybe make you more understand how technology works in society and perhaps be more critical. And I'm not saying that one is necessarily better than the other, but I do think that perhaps the vocational part of artificial intelligence is being very overemphasized in perhaps national reports like this sort of agenda that was recently released by the South Korean government with goals such as establishing a world-leading AI ecosystem or becoming the nation that best applies AI or implementing human-centric AI, whatever it means. Or this sort of nowadays very common like open courseware, this one being provided by I think sub-organization of the company neighbor, and dealing with topics such as deep learning, software development, and which promises to grow your career competence. And these are all like valid, but at the same time, my concern is about what kind of imagination for the future this type of sort of industry and job prospect and human resources focused approaches enable, other than one where you will learn how to do AI and earn a lot of money. So I think that kind of perhaps worldview is very reductive and narrow, and perhaps even very deterministic in terms of how technology operates. It assumes these sort of ideas tend to assume that technology will be a given that will perhaps thrust upon us. But I would like us to be able to imagine more diverse futures where technology is, we are able to use technology to perhaps make those diverse imagined futures reality. So that's what I mean when I say a civic strategy for artificial intelligence. And I think that this sort of approach should probably include questions about power in technology, especially when the current applications of AI are all too often implemented in a way that enables very hyper-capitalistic practices and surveillance states, while often reducing people to data points or consumers. And in order to be able to question these kind of things, I think we need to establish a sort of understanding of AI as not just an automation technology, which it is, and has a huge impact on issues like labor, but also as algorithm systems that consist of code, machinery, and people, and that exist in social context, as well as global infrastructures that are essentially reliant on very exploitative practices of data, labor, and material resources. So I think this sort of literacy can be a forward step towards people's agency of AI, or of any technology, but for that matter. So this is essentially the goal I came into the fellowship with. I wanted to contribute to community building activities for people's better literacy and, by extension, greater agency over AI. So within the context of this fellowship, I wanted to do sort of the groundwork of questioning who is doing the work of questioning power in AI technology, who's educating people, and what are some methods to contribute to those communities and networks. Some of the things I did include conducting interviews with organizations like OpenNet, which is a non-profit organization focusing on human rights and privacy issue on the internet. Unmake Lab, which is a group of activists / educators, and I should probably also add / individual researchers, who do a great job of organizing events and activities in the in-between space of technology and the social, as well as the Seoul Digital Foundation, where I didn't meet the president, by the way, but which run lots of educational programs around data technology. So the conversation raised lots of interesting points, but one I think major common denominator was the problem of promotion and/or communication, especially reaching out to different communities, and not just through word of mouth, but like through more perhaps. I want to say organic, but I don't think that's what I mean. But I would just say reaching out more and connecting more with diverse communities. And especially in the conversation with Unmake Lab, the idea of sort of middle grounds between disciplines, sort of outside the barriers of specific scholarly or artistic or organizational boundaries came up to enable more conversation and the exchange of ideas. On another note, based on the conversation I had with these people and also based on my own research, I started compiling a list of organizations and communities that might be relevant to people who are interested in the concept of AI literacy. And you can access this Google spreadsheet by scanning the QR code on the A4 paper over there. So this has been essentially the time span of my time in the fellowship, but moving forward I want to keep compiling resources as I started doing, and also as a means to contribute to the idea of community networking and promotion, and also at the suggestion of Oh-hyun, with him I had a very good conversation. I want to start issuing some newsletters that I want to title Latent Space Newsletter, which I don't have time to explain why I chose that name, but which would include resources like readings, articles, and interesting news around the topic of AI literacy and especially civic literacy, as well as interesting events, opportunities, and resources. So I didn't have time to actually build a newsletter, but just for a quick case, here's what might be included in in future issues. So, for example, this is this Thursday there's at Arts and Nabi. There's going to be a forum that's titled AI Plus, where the director of the Arts and Nabi and researcher named Lee Jae-hyun will have a conversation. Also, next Monday there will be an international conference on AI ethics and data governance, organized by OpenNet and Korea University, as well as Berkman Klein Center from Harvard at Korea University. And after this fellowship, I plan to keep working on organizing educational events or public events, such as workshops, seminars, talks, and conferences pertinent to the topic. And that's the end of my presentation. So, thank you.